and welcome back to our second baking recipe for this weekend. If you've watched the first one, I made a super quick and easy and healthy chocolate banana muffin. It was flourless, it was sugarless, and you think it would be disgusting, but my goodness, it is tasty, and it's only 2 points a muffin, and they are quite sizable muffins. This recipe is going to be, it's called a raspberry topped lemon slice, and it is worth 6 points for that lemon slice. Now you might say to yourself, well, that's quite indulgent for a slice, and this might be the kind of thing that you cook for, I would say, for guests coming round, but we've got a wee while to go till we get to phase 3, so perhaps if you are very careful with your hygiene when you are cooking and baking them, you could lay them out in the garden for phase 2, so people could come out and socially distance and help themselves to one of these lovely lemon bars. Now, first thing I'm going to say is that I do not actually have any raspberries to top our lemon bars, which is such a tragedy because these raspberries just now, lovely hot spring that we have had, have meant that the Scottish raspberries are just beautiful. They're so sweet, they're so juicy, but I don't have any. So I am hoping to pop along to Blair Diamond Smiddy to get some raspberries and strawberries tomorrow, but of course I'm not cooking tomorrow, I'm cooking today, so we'll just have to make do with what we have got. So in terms of what the ingredients call for, as you can see, it's not the most straightforward of recipes to do because you're doing it in 2 separate parts. You've got the base, which will be a biscuity base, and then a sort of creamy custard topping at the top, obviously. And the way obviously they do it for the Weight Watchers app to allow it to easily add to your track it, then it's not the easiest to follow. So please bear with me as I try and explain my ingredients as I go. So let's get a look at some of these ingredients. Now, as you can see, I've got these divided into 2 separate sections. The recipe is basically the biscuit base and the soft lemon topping up here. The way the website has the ingredients, it's to make it easy for tracking, but it's not particularly easy for following for a recipe. So allow me to break this down a little bit. So first of all, we have 100 grams of plain flour. We have 3 tablespoons of caster sugar, 2 teaspoons of water, about a teaspoon of lemon zest, and half a teaspoon of salt, and I think it's 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Sorry, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, which is not very easy to work out when you've got a solid piece of butter. So that is about 30 grams of butter. For our soft lemony topping, we have half a teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of salt. We have 2 tablespoons of plain flour. We have the rest of the caster sugar from whatever was the recipe, from what we've used in the biscuit base. Here we're supposed to have 115 mils of lemon, so I've just kept that there because it's pretty. 1 lemon will probably do you about 2/3 of that, so you will need to top that up with either another lemon or a lemon from or lemon juice from your fridge, the bottled lemon juice. We have the remainder of the lemon zest from the full lemon that has been zested there. And we have 3 eggs, the large free-range eggs that have been separated. So before I begin getting all the ingredients together, I'm going to do the most important thing, which I always forget to do, which is to put my oven on. And it's 180 fan 200 conventional oven. So I'm going to take my flour, sugar, salt and lemon zest, and I'm going to give that a good mix together. Take my melted butter and I'm going to drizzle that over and just bring that together into biscuity crumbs. So using my fork here, pressing it into a dough. You will need to add the water but I recommend that you, there's the water there. I recommend you add a little bit at a time because you don't want this to be too doughy, you want to keep it quite crummy. So put a little bit in, but half in just now, give it more of a mix, and I can add a little bit more in later. It's always easier to take, to add more than it is to take stuff out, especially when it's a liquid into flour. There we go, so if you can see this, so I'm just pulling this into a biscuit crumb. Now you could be really traditional and do it the way that I was trained to do biscuit crumbs, which is to use your hands, lovely and clean of course, and just bring them together and get it into a crumb like this. Now I think that is actually the best way to do it, especially for biscuit bases. Whenever I've made lemon tarts, full fat lemon tarts before, it's get the crumb nice and biscuity and soft obviously, before bringing it into a dough, and it just gives that lovely crisp texture. So I'm going to work away at that, get in my crumbs nice and fine before bringing it together into a dough. So I've got my crumbs ready to go. I'm going to bring them together into a dough. You know, the recipe says use a fork, but I really prefer using my hands. Just get a better feel for what you've got there. And as I can see, I actually think this is just a tad on the dry side, so I'm going to add the remainder of that water there. Yeah. Okay. I think it's really important that you use your hands when you can, and I know it's not great under the COVID-19, especially if you're going to be sharing this with people out with your household, but under normal circumstances it's definitely better to use your hands where you can. It just gives you a better understanding of what it is you are working with. I'm going to take my 20 by 20 square cake tin. I'm going to mix it with Frylight. Now in my previous video I did say that I was a little bit, you know, uncomfortable with using Frylight for things, but I have to say, see for baking, it makes it so much easier for greasing your cake tin, to just mist it over like that. I'm going to tip this in. I'm just going to press this down into the corner, so it's quite a thin cake layer, I would say. It has occurred to me, I'm not actually sure I'm going to get this back out again, so that will be a fun game for later on. We're going to press this in. Do you know what, I suppose I would say if you've got you know, the springform cake tins, it doesn't say have a springform cake tin, so I'm hoping this is going to work for me. If you've got a springform cake tin or one of those loose bottom ones that you just pop over the top, that would do. But yeah, just pressing all of that in there like so until it's nice and firm, and that is going into the oven for about, I think it's, let me just double check and remind myself here, 10 to 12 minutes at 180. While that's in the oven, the biscuit base is in the oven, we'll get on with the topping. So for the topping you're going to need 2 large bowls, and you're going to need a handheld whisker like this. You're going to be creating a meringue with the egg whites in one bowl, and then adding this to the rest of your ingredients with the egg yolks, sugar and lemon juice in there. Now for that reason, because I'm going to be taking the meringue and adding it to the thing, I'm going to put all the rest of the ingredients in the big bowl, because it's easier to add to a bigger bowl than it is to add to a smaller one. I know it sounds really obvious, but sometimes just taking the time to think about it stops you getting yourself all in a fangle later on. So I'll just egg yolks, 3 of them, lemon zest, the rest of the lemon zest that we had from that one lemon that we got. We've got our baking powder, and we've got some more salt, just a little bit of salt. And again, I know lots of people think it's really weird when you put salt into bacon, but you get that really good contrast with the sweet and savoury. I would say that it's the kind of flavour balance that makes you want to eat more of it. So maybe you might want to not put the salt in if you're trying to not eat as much, but then if you really want to create something that's going to be worth eating and worth the 6 points, then chuck it in. We've got our flour that will be thickening the base area there, so we'll stick in the flour. And we've got 2/3 of the lemon juice that we need, and I've got this last one here that I was keeping to make it look pretty. naughty and forgot to actually do it itself, so I'm just going to do that there. I'm just keeping an eye if I've got any pips. Using my fork just to stab it into, just to make it easier to squeeze out. And I know that's going to give me my 115 millilitres there. This doesn't seem to have any pips. How lucky are we? How lucky am I even? There we go. Done. I'm going to give this a good mix. Get it all blended in. Doesn't look particularly appetising at the moment, but it will do. Okay, put that to the side. Let's get our egg whites whipped up just now. So we have 3 egg whites, 3 large egg whites. Take our whisker and we're going for soft peaks. The soft peaks look something like this. Quite easy to do it more. But when you lift it up, it keeps the peak, but it's definitely not the kind that you want to put over your head. So we've got this lovely air in this. We're going to put this into our lemony mix, which I had to add sugar in while I was whisking because I realised I forgot to do it and it wouldn't taste very nice with just the salt in it. That's the biscuit base. So before we do that, let's do the biscuit base and get it out, get it cooling. It's not much to look at just now, but it's got that nice crispy base, which is what we're looking for. Let's pop that in. Okay, so we're going to add in our whipped eggs. Now, use a spatula, either one like this, which I prefer because it's easier for scraping round and mixing in, or a wooden one like that. Because what you want to do when you're mixing this in is you want to cut, you don't want to kind of flatten all that air, so you want to just sort of mix it in gently. So we're gently whisking this in. Okay. So you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so notice how I'm not going flat, I'm going straight on and getting that all worked in. Now, I'm not going to lie, I always worry about doing it this way. Always worried that I'm going to take all the air out of the mixture. So it's definitely better to be cautious than it is to be too eager. Make sure it's all of that lemon is all well distributed. Okay, that is looking not too bad. There we go, so we can see that all well distributed. Okay, so we've got the egg mixture, we've got the baked biscuit base. I'm going to turn the oven down to 170 conventional, and I think it's 150 for the fan oven. So I've turned it down to 150. Very simply, I'm going to try not to touch a tin that's just come out of the oven. Did you notice how I did not react? Asbestos fingers there. I'm going to pour this in and I'm going to spread it gently around the sides. Okay, make sure it's getting into all of those corners. Oh, I really wish I had the raspberries to go with this. Asbestos fingers here. And there we have it, we've got that in there. I don't want to sugar it about too much. Let's get that in just now. And we're going to put this on for 20 minutes. So that's 20 minutes at that reduced temperature of 150 or 170, depending on what you're using. Another cup of tea. Paper's just gone off. time to bring out after our 20 minutes or so our lemon cake. And there we go. Nice wee bit of colour on it. Quite springy to the touch. I'm just going to leave that to cool for, I'm not sure how long it will take to cool, half an hour, and then I'm going to slice it into 12 bars. So we'll see what happens. About how we're going to get it out the tin then.